Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you, Sergeant Chouquet. I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly. If you would please remain standing, I would like to invite now Chaplain Andrew Warner to come forward to deliver our invocation.
Let us pray. Almighty God, you give us life and breath. We gather here for a solemn occasion. We're here to honor those who have served our nation and gave their last full measure. They never made it home to family and friends. Their absence creates a void. We're grateful for their sacrifice. Generation after generation, they preserve our liberty. May we never forget that liberty is never free, but is of great cost. We honor their service today. Almighty, meet us here. You are the author of life and freedom. Be with us as we remember our fallen. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Colonel Warner. Very much appreciated. Everyone can please be seated. Can you all hear me okay in the back? Okay, all right, good. All right, at this time, we'd like to recognize our distinguished guests that are in the audience, starting with our illustrious Governor of Delaware, Governor John Carney. Our Lieutenant Governor of Delaware, Lieutenant Governor Bethany Hall Long. U.S. Senator Tom Carper. U.S. Senator Chris Coons. U.S. Representative Lisa Blunt Rochester. Our Delaware Secretary of State, Jeff Bullock. And we've changed things up a little bit this time. We would like all statewide elected officials to please stand. All statewide elected officials to please stand to be recognized. Would also like all of our members of the Delaware General Assembly. You guys are getting your exercise. Oh, okay, we have General Berry is here, our Delaware Adjutant General, Major General Michael Berry. And his beautiful general wife, Director of the Joint Staff for Connecticut National Guard, Brigadier General Karen Berry. We'd like to recognize the first state, the first capital, our Mayor of Dover, Mayor Robin Christensen. Executive Director for the Delaware River and Bay Authority, Tom Cook. Executive Director for the Delaware Office of Veteran Services, Joshua Maddox. Our current Acting Director for the Wilmington VA Medical Center, Mr. Jeffrey Byler. And he's got his entourage with him, Kim. Vice Chair for the Delaware Commission of Veterans Affairs, Valerie Harwood. And we want to recognize all of our commissioners for the Delaware Commission of Veterans Affairs. Newcastle County Executive, Matt Meyer. Okay, and of course, all of our Gold Star families. If you can stand, please stand. We honor you today. Thank you. Unfortunately, time does not permit for us to acknowledge all of our distinguished guests, so we extend thanks to local officials, service members, our veteran service organizations, family members, and all veterans in attendance. Thank you for your service. It is now time for our Memorial Day messages. I would like you to please give a warm welcome to the Governor of Delaware, Governor John Carney.
Thank you, Anna. Good morning. Good morning. What a beautiful day here in Delaware. It is just gorgeous. I came here a little early this morning. We had a special visit from the President of the United States, who came to quietly place a wreath. He often comes to this ceremony, he has for many, many years. But after he left, I took the opportunity to go around and stand before the Gold Star Families Monument and the Korean War Monument. It's just a beautiful place to reflect on those who made that ultimate sacrifice, and I would encourage all of you to do that. We did pretty much, Anna covered it mostly, but there are a couple other folks that I'd like to recognize. First, Brigadier General retired Terry Wiley, the civilian aide to the Secretary of the Army. Terry, thanks for your long service to our state and for being here all the time. Surprised that we didn't hear recognition for Ray Fermani, who's 101 years old, World War II veteran, B-17 pilot, 25 flights over Germany. We should all find out what he eats for breakfast every morning. One of the things that we know he does is he stays close to our former Brigadier Major General, retired Frank Vavla. Frank, thank you for being here. Come on, Frank, there we go. Got to get this out of the way every year. Governor Markell threatened to let him go after getting standing ovations when he didn't get them himself. I was asked before I sat down by our guest speaker, and now we're going to have two speakers, although they look like the same person, whether I was going to recite a poem. And I said, no, I'll leave it up to you poets, the twin poets, to do the poem. But it is really good to be with all of you this morning. And for me, I think it's important that we take a few minutes to reflect on really the meaning of this day. And for me, that means remembering those who sacrificed their lives and the families and friends that they left behind. And importantly, it means telling their individual stories. It's also important, of course, and we have already, that we show our appreciation for those who have served, our veterans, and those who are serving today. As your governor, I'm honored to be the Commander-in-Chief of the Delaware Army and Air National Guards. It's been a busy 6.5 years for our Guard, and I use every opportunity I can, and so I'm going to do it now, to thank General Berry and his troops for all they did during the pandemic and what they continue to do for us. The Delaware Guard during that period of time also has deployed 19 times. Almost 900 members of the Guard have served their state and their country around the world, from Iraq and Afghanistan to Kuwait, Kenya, Jordan, Kosovo, and South Korea, and others. Again, please help me thank Major General Mike Berry, and he's accompanied this morning with Brigadier General Karen Berry from Connecticut. Thank you for both for your service to our states and our country. I think often of our Guardsmen and women and the proud history of the National Guard service in our state. The history goes all the way back to the Revolutionary War in the Delaware 1st Regiment. The first commander of that unit was Milford resident Colonel John Hazlitt. Upon joining General Washington's army in the summer of 1776, the regiment fought bravely in the battles around New York and Long Island. Colonel Hazlitt and the Delaware Regiment was with Washington in the famous crossing of the Delaware River on Christmas night, 1776, to attack Trenton the next day. 8 days later, Colonel Hazlitt was killed in action during the Battle of Princeton. Colonel Hazlitt died in the War for Independence, but his legacy lives on today in our Delaware National Guard, and what a proud legacy that is. As you know, this year, we recognize the 50th anniversary of the end of the Vietnam War. The Vietnam Memorial Monument in Brandywine Park is right near my house. The memorial commemorates the soldiers from Wilmington and Newcastle County who died while serving in Vietnam. The monument, if you've seen it, stops you in your tracks. At least it does that for me. The sculpture, designed by Delaware artist Charles Parks, depicts a soldier carrying the body of his fallen brother in arms on the battlefield. For me, the statue evokes really powerful emotions, and in a very dramatic way, it shows the ultimate cost of war and the death and dying of one soldier and the anguish of another. The monument is just 2 blocks from where I live, and I walk by it often at night. I stop to look at and remember the names, especially the names of people whose families I know. Names including Second Lieutenant Kevin Flaherty, the older brother of John Flaherty, who I saw early, I know he's here, a staff member of Senator Biden, known to most of us. Charles Anderson, one of the last Delawareans killed in action in Vietnam in 1971. His mother, Pauline, for many years used to sit right there in the front row. She was devoted to his memory. Lieutenant Kurt Brown, an outstanding athlete and 1963 graduate of A.I. DuPont High School. Kurt was the oldest of 7 children of Mr. and Mrs. Werner Brown, who was the president of the Hercules Company. And I think Dave Brown is here in the tent as well. Lieutenant James Connell, a graduate of Salesianum, killed in a Vietnamese POW camp in 1971, but not before he resisted and passed on intelligence to other POWs who were eventually released. And 20-year-old Private First Class William Butler of the 1st Battalion, 327th Infantry, 101st Airborne, killed in Phu Yen Province in 1966. 44 other soldiers from Wilmington, their names are forever remembered on that monument, and 122 Delawareans gave their lives in Vietnam. As we mark the 50th anniversary of the end of the Vietnam War, we also thank our Vietnam veterans. And I would ask you to stand up, Vietnam veterans, and give you the welcome home that you didn't get 50 years ago. Thank you for your service and welcome home. Our state is committed to remembering and honoring our neighbors whose lives were cut short. You can see it in the flags flying on the front porches up and down our state, and in monuments like the one here behind us and the one in Brandywine Park, the Korean Memorial just a few steps from here. It's important to repeat their names, to tell their stories. Patriots like Jack Dengler, my wife's Tracy's uncle, who was shot down at sea near Italy in World War II and died at age 26. Like 26-year-old Corporal Stephen McGowan, a fellow St. Mark's graduate who died in Ramadi, Iraq, while on patrol in 2005. And Senior Airman Elizabeth Lonke, a graduate of Padua Academy, killed in Iraq in 2007, but not before she disarmed more than 20 explosive devices during her deployment. And Army First Class Joseph Marquez, who died while serving last year in a training accident. Many of these fallen officers come through the Port Mortuary at Dover. They have a difficult and sacred mission. They do it incredibly well, and we're grateful for their service today. Unfortunately, the list of those we've lost goes on, and I know each of you here has your own list. Today, we remember and honor all those names, and the ones that are personal to each of us, and all the names on the monuments behind us and across our state. To all the veterans who have served proudly and are here with us today, thank you for your service. Let this Memorial Day be a day that we celebrate your service and your sacrifice, and tell and retell your individual stories, which are an inspiration for all of us. May God bless you all, and may God bless the great United States of America.
Thank you, Governor Carney, for that great message. We appreciate you being here and speaking for us today. I failed to mention to recognize General Vavala, who's, sorry, had to go there. And also, we have Carol Earhart from the Delaware Veterans Home, and she has her staff here with her as well today. Recognize the Delaware Veterans Home. Okay, now I would like to welcome Lieutenant Governor of Delaware, Bethany Hall Long.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Anna. Governor, thank you for those words of remembrance and the Delawareans who you highlighted today from the 50 years with Vietnam. And to our Senators Coons, Senator Carper, our own Vietnam vet, thank you so much for your service. And to our Congresswoman, and to all of my incredible distinguished colleagues, both from statewide and the General Assembly, and to General Barry, and to my remarkable, incredible colleagues from the Veterans Commission and the Veterans Home, who does so much each and every day for families. But today, we start with our Gold Star mothers and our Gold Star families. We know every day for you is Memorial Day. There is a seat where a brother, where a parent, where a sibling, where a child, a son, a daughter is supposed to be. And there are missed holidays, there are no birthday candles. But we come today for you and for those who've served to show our incredible appreciation. I thought today, as I was driving here, to share a little bit as our governor. Interestingly, we didn't compare notes, that you look at the memorial here in Delaware. I had the opportunity as a military wife, when my husband was stationed at the United States Bureau of Naval Personnel, which is contiguous to the National Arlington Cemetery at Fort Myer. And I had the honor of hearing incredible words as we laid angels and heroes to their permanence, and we know they're angels. And the words of members to your family resonate: courage, valor, hero, freedom fighter, independence. And that's what Memorial Day is about, honoring and remembering. And I also look to our guardsmen here, and I think about, as a child, watching my father put on the guard outfit. And on rare occasions such as Memorial Day, he would talk about his time as an Army infantry medic. And he always said, like John F. Kennedy would say, you have to not only act on words and not only utter, but you have to act on them and live them. Because I have seen both physical and invisible wounds. And on occasion, he would describe those. And they left a remarkable presence on me. And I want you to know that here, to the families and to those who have served, and to our incredible Veterans Home members who are present, who care for our most important, that we in the General Assembly and here in the state, we stand ready and prepared to continue to support. And finally, I'll just remind you, as we uplift families on this day, that General Davila, myself, and others with the Commission, the Veterans Office, the Governor's Challenge, we have an incredible team prepared for those of you who still suffer, perhaps in silence, and need the assistance. So call on us. And so with that, again, I want to say thank you to the families, thank you all for your incredible service, your courage, for our freedom, and for the valor. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Once again, great words coming from a great group of folks here. You all always have, every year, new messages for us, and we appreciate, appreciate you. So Senator Carper is looking at me. He knows he's next. Giving me the eye. I'm just kidding. So please welcome U.S. Senator Tom Carper to the podium.
Good morning. Let me hear you say welcome home. Come on, one more time. Welcome home. One more time like you mean it. Welcome home. There you go. It's great to be with all of you. I stand before you today as the son of Navy Chief Petty Officer, World War II Korea veteran. I stand before you as the nephew of a Korean War veteran and another Navy Chief Petty Officer. I stand before you today as the grandson of F.A. May Patton, my mom's mother. She's a Gold Star mother. Her son died in an attack on his aircraft carrier in April of 1944, the USS Suwannee. His body was never recovered. He was 19 years old. And if you ever come to my office in Washington, D.C., 513 Hart, and walk into my office, you'll see a large black and white photograph of him taken about a month before he deployed for the last time. He is an inspiration to me, and I suspect to everybody who ventures into my office. Last week, I was in, of all places, Yorba Linda, California. I was at the Richard Nixon Presidential Library. I'm a Democrat. I think I was the only Democrat in the whole place. And, but we were there to celebrate the anniversary of the return of Vietnam veterans who had been released by the Vietnamese and brought home to this country. They're the name of 58,000 Vietnam veterans on the mall. Have any ever been to the Vietnam Veteran Memorial on the mall near the Lincoln Memorial? I like to run, and so do some of my colleagues, and many times too many to count. I will run on the mall, and I always go by the Lincoln Memorial, stop and say good morning to President Lincoln, and then I run by the Vietnam Memorial, and I take my fingers, and I literally touch the names of everybody. Not everybody, but a whole lot of the people whose names are there, just to feel in touch with the men and the women. Most people think no women died in the Vietnam War. There were a number of people who were female nurses, and let's give them a round of applause as well. They don't get much credit, but they were heroes as well. I'd worked on along with Senator Coons and our Congresswoman Lisa Rochester, on a bipartisan congressional proclamation to commemorate the anniversary, the 50th anniversary of the release and return of over 500 Vietnam POWs to our country. I don't know quite how to say this, but let me just put it out to you just really plainly. When the war was over and a bunch of us came home, we didn't get much of a welcome, as some of you know. And I feel really strangely, almost wonderful. The lack of a welcome then has been more than made up. People are so kind, so supportive, so it's just like it's an incredible transformation. And for one who came home with not too much of a welcome, I hope other Vietnam veterans feel that too. The other thing I want to mention today is I had the privilege, in 1991, to lead a congressional delegation back to Vietnam to an effort to find out what happened to the hundreds of MIAs that were never found, see what information we could get, try to provide closure for families whose loved ones were still missing in action. We were able to get the information about 500 or 600 Vietnam veterans who had passed away, get information back to their families so that they could have closure. I had an incredible meeting with my congressional delegation. This was the request of former President George Herbert Walker Bush. But we met with a brand new Vietnamese leader that day in August of 1991. And when the six of us in our delegation met with him, I introduced the members of our delegation as we began the meeting in a beautiful home, big, beautiful home in Hanoi that day. And there was a Congressman, Wayne Gilchrist, Marine, from the 1st Congressional District of Maryland, who was one of our 6 members in our CODEL. And I introduced him to Chairman DeMoy, and I said, Mr. Chairman, like you, Congressman Gilchrist was a house painter. You're both house painters, imagine that. And DeMoy was sitting about 10 feet away from us, nodded his head. And I said, Mr. Chairman, like you, Congressman Gilchrist was not only a house painter, he was an educator, he was a teacher, like you. And DeMoy kind of waved, and I could see he was really getting interested. And then I said, and like you, Mr. Chairman, Wayne Gilchrist volunteered to serve in his armed forces for his country. And at that point, I really had DeMoy's attention. And then I said to Chairman DeMoy, I said, and like you, Congressman Gilchrist was shot and wounded, badly wounded, almost died. And you were shot and wounded and badly, most died, in the same war. At that point in time, DeMoy said to me and to us, he said, to Wayne, may I see your wound? I said, may I see your wound? Wayne just sat there. And a minute goes by, and DeMoy said again, may I see your wound? He asked him, he said, where were you shot? And Wayne was explaining what part of the country he was shot in. And DeMoy said, no, where in your body were you shot? And Wayne pointed to his chest right here, and DeMoy stood up, and he said, may I see your wound? And Wayne just sat there. And we did too, like we were like in ice, like frozen. And DeMoy walked across the room. He lifted down and he reached down and he picked up Wayne to stand up. And he said, where were you shot? And Wayne pointed to his chest. And DeMoy turned him around, turned around in front of us. He lifted up the back. We had these loose-fitting white shirts on. And DeMoy literally lifted up Wayne Gilchrist's shirt. And there you could see right on the left shoulder of Wayne Gilchrist was this big wound, a bad scar that was still there after all those years. DeMoy took his fingers and he put his fingers in, he really just around the circumference of that wound, pulled down his shirt, and they embraced, just like that. And I thought we were going to fall over. It was as emotional an experience I've ever had in my life. We sat down. I took out the roadmap to normalize relations that President George Herbert Walker Bush had given us in anticipation of that very moment. And I gave it to DeMoy, and I said, our president wants to see if we can normalize relations. But before we do, we need information on the hundreds of men who've never come home. We don't know what happened to them. Their families need to know. And if you want to normalize relations, we can do that, but we want to know the truth. As it turns out, we've gotten the truth on not all of them, but almost all of them. And we've started a new relationship with Vietnam. I'll close with this. Vietnam will never be a Jeffersonian democracy, and we probably won't either, despite our best efforts. But today we have normal diplomatic relations with Vietnam. They're one of our top 10 trading partners. Imagine that, one of our top 10 trading partners. The U.S. ships call on Vietnamese harbors like we used to. When a bunch of us served over there, we have aircraft that are in and out of the place. We have one of the best economic relationships we have with any country in that part of the world. And I'll close with the words of our President, Joe Biden. Chris and Lisa and Governor and Lieutenant Governor, I heard Joe Biden say this many times, but he likes to say, all diplomacy is personal. All politics is personal. And when I think back the moment when we met with Demoy and had that incredible experience with him, presented the roadmap, I became a real believer that all diplomacy is personal. P.S. 6 years ago, in Barack Obama's last year as governor, as president, he invited John McCain, John Kerry, and me to go back to Vietnam with him in order to celebrate the next leg in our normalization of relations with Vietnam and on a military basis, on a defense basis, which has continued to flower into this day. We had part of a morning off while the 3 days we were there, and I went to visit the Vietnam memorial. There's actually a memorial to John McCain, literally on a lake in Hanoi. And it's a statue of him in his aircraft crashed in that same lake, being dragged out by Vietnamese people. And it's not too far from the Hanoi Hilton. I went to the Hanoi Hilton, went in, a young man took me around, and during the tour, I got to see pictures of John McCain, pictures of Pete Peterson, who was part of my delegation, Vietnam veteran, POW from Florida. And I come to a really big picture, a really large portrait of an old Vietnamese man that was there with all the other Vietnam veterans, photographs of them. And I said, young guy about 25, I said, who is that old man? And he said, that is Demoy. He used to be our leader. I said, you're kidding. He said, yes. And I said, I know him. I met him. In fact, we met all those years ago, and it changed the course of history between our two countries. I said, have you ever met him? And he said, he comes here probably every other week. I said, really? And he said, yes, really. He comes here and he will just walk around and he'll sit here for hours on edge. I said, that's amazing. And I said, would you do a favor for me? And he said, sure. And I said, if I wrote a note on the back of my business card, would you give it to him when he comes? He said, I would. I wrote on the back of my business card, Lisa's heard this before, Chris has heard this before, an African proverb. And it goes something like this. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Mr. Chairman, we decided to go together, and it's been better for your country and for mine. I gave it to the young man. He said, I will take it to his home today. He says he lives like 2 blocks from me. I'll take it to his home today. That's all I got, folks. God bless you. Happy Memorial Day. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Carper. What a great speech, great story. Thank you for sharing. Okay, now we would like to invite Senator Chris Coons to come up and say a few words. Senator?
Well, thank you, Anna. Thank you for the opportunity to join everyone here today who is reflecting on our somber annual recognition of Memorial Day, to Anna Lopez of DCVA and Major General Barry and everyone in service and leadership in our National Guard, to our elected officials, Governor Carney and all the other electeds at the federal, state, county, local level who are here today, and our veterans, and most importantly, our Gold Star families. I have just a few brief reflections for you. First, although this is not Veterans Day, any veteran who is looking for service and support from my office, I hope you know Cleo Jones, herself a Marine Corps veteran who served in Okinawa and Hawaii, who handles veterans advocacy issues for me, and Kate Rohr, who will make sure that letters sent to my office are timely responded to and requests for resolutions are timely resolved. 2 issues we discussed just before I stood up. So thank you both, and thank you for using this as an appropriate opportunity to make sure that we are being responsive. To Governor Carney, thank you for bringing us back to the powerful memorial that is just a few blocks from your home and in the neighborhood where I lived for a decade. Charles Parks is Delaware's most well-known sculptor, and he did a remarkable job of capturing the anguish, the loss, the comradeship, the support that is at the very center of the loss of life that is the thing that brings us together here today. And thank you for reminding us that names that are on memorials are not just names. They are shadows, they are holes, they are places in families' history that are never the same. There are several folks here who are members of Gold Star families, who've been neighbors and acquaintances of mine who I did not know until today, Governor, had lost a brother, a relative in Vietnam or in some other conflict. And that's why it is so important for us to gather and to be reminded that people who we've known as leaders in our community for decades have a missing family member decades ago. To my friend and colleague, Tom Carper, I cannot let today pass without saying that you understand better than anyone I know that service is personal. The veteran, the American service member killed in combat who had the biggest impact on me as a younger man was my next door neighbor, Sean Mowdy. Sean was killed in Iraq on December 11th, 2005. He was a first sergeant. He was on his third tour. His mother was a Quaker. And Sean was determined to join the military and to serve proudly. And at his funeral, I had a long conversation with Thelma, his mother, and the way she was working through understanding this poignant and bitter loss, this sacrifice, this determination that he had to help another country find its way towards peace. Judy, that's the experience that is most often in my mind, but I know for each of these Gold Star family members, it is your loss and the losses of so many other American families that are in your front of mind. Well, my senior senator, who will be the last of the Vietnam veterans to serve in our Senate when he retires, has made this mission that he has carried for decades since he came home deeply personal. You have inspired all the rest of us who are statewide electeds in your passion for our veterans, in your passion for the VA and for fixing it and making it better and stronger, in your passion for the cemetery that remembers our veterans, and in personally calling the families of those like the Mowdys who have lost a family member in a way that most of you don't know, but that is the perfect exemplar of Tom Carper's service. Personal, persistent, annual, meaningful, and profound. All of us serve in some way. We are all here to remember and thank someone who we know, someone who our state knew, someone who our city or our nation knew. But we make it different. We make it more powerful. We make it more lasting when we make it personal. And so to my senior senator, I'll close by thanking you for being a role model to all of us of what it means to not just be a veteran who served in Southeast Asia yourself, not just a senator who served by going to Vietnam and seeking reconciliation yourself, but by personally calling the families of the fallen and ensuring that they are never forgotten. Thank you all. God bless you.
Again, thank you very much, Senator Coons, Senator Carper. Thank you for your dedicated years of service. Okay. I wasn't sure if you were going to be here, but it's so nice to see you. Please welcome our Congresswoman Lisa Blunt Rochester.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Anna. Good morning. Good morning. I wasn't scheduled to be here, and I will be leaving shortly to go to Washington as we work on the votes for the debt ceiling. But I am so honored that I am able to be here. And as I sat and listened, of the years that I've done this, I think this year, the speeches have been so personal, so really fitting the occasion. Not political speeches, but really recognizing that this holiday is not about parades, it's not about barbecues and sales. It is really about remembering those who gave their lives for our country. And I looked on the program, and it says a quote, "Our flag does not fly because the wind moves it. It flies with the last breath of each soldier that died protecting it." I have words on a piece of paper here. Like everybody else, I'm going to go off script and just say that for me, we owe such a debt of gratitude to our Gold Star families, to our Gold Star mothers. When you lose someone, there's this space between gratitude for having them and sadness that they're not here. And so first, to you, we thank you for that sacrifice. That's what the word of today is, sacrifice. In our office, Krista Weed gets to do our constituent casework, working with our veterans and our families. And first of all, I want to thank her for her compassion and her service, because this she takes as a personal mission. Her mother having worked at the VA for decades now, 32 years. But she told me a story recently of a son that reached out to our office to get his father's military records. Records that that family did not even know existed. And what he found out was that his dad, who had served for, I think, 3 decades, actually had a Purple Heart and a combat ribbon, and that he had a legacy. And as the governor spoke, what stood out to me is that this is about individual stories, individual family members, individuals who serve this country with valor. And so I'm grateful to be here today to honor them, to honor you, and our greatest obligation is to follow in the tradition of service that they exemplified, but to never, ever, ever forget they are more than names on a wall or statues in a park. They're our family. They were our friends, our neighbors, the people we loved, and they did it in service to this country. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Okay, this retired sergeant major does cry. You guys have me tearing up here, okay? But I got a job to do, so I can't cry right now. But thank you for all your kind messages. Very, very heartfelt. Okay, it's an honor for me now to introduce our keynote speaker. Representative Nnamdi Chukwuocha is the state representative for Delaware's 1st District. He has dedicated his life to public and community service, which began with military service in the United States Army alongside his twin brother, Wilmington City Councilman at large Al Mills. And I have to throw this in here because as I was walking up, I was shaking your twin brother's hand saying, "Thank you for being our keynote speaker today." And he's like, "Wait, I'm the twin brother." I'm like, "Oh my goodness, you guys look just alike." So yeah, they pulled a fast one on me earlier. Councilman Mills is a decorated combat veteran. After their service, the brothers became community-based master social workers. They have built over 30 years of experience working with families. Representative Skukocha was elected to the House in November of 2018 and has served continuously since. He is currently the chair of the House Veterans Affairs and Corrections Committees and vice chair of the Delaware Legislative Black Caucus. He also serves as one half of the spoken word duo, the Twin Poets. Representative Chukocha and Councilman Mills serve as the state's Poets Laureate. Did I say that right? So please give a warm welcome to Representative Chukocha and Councilman Mills.
Good morning, everyone. It is always an honor to be here, and just a few words of recognition. Thank you to the commission, to Anna, to Joshua for extending the invitation for not just me to share a poem this year, but also to bring, as he calls himself, my better half. And if you have a twin or you know twins, then you know it's always a smart one and the other one, and he's the other one. So, but he's truly my best friend in the world, and I say every year that being here is a great honor as a veteran in my first year in the General Assembly, and I often get emotional. I'm not sure if my predecessor, former Representative Earl Jakes is here, General Jakes, but he extended this privilege to me as a freshman in the House to come to this event and to share. And he didn't have to, but he did, and it was something that allowed me the opportunity to share, and I'm thankful for that. Our senior senator mentioned a few things about that transition from when our veterans came home from Vietnam into the way veterans are recognized today. And as artists, I would love to feel in my heart that I know art is transformation. Art transforms, it's very transformational, and I like to believe that art played a part in that, in us being able to recognize the valor of men and women, what was given for us to have the lives that we have every day. So often it's not recognized. I had the opportunity last night to sit with my own family and just speak briefly to my son about Memorial Day and what it really meant. And I was trying to explain the difference between Memorial Day and Veterans Day, and he finally got it. And we looked and talked about what happens and how did our nation become who we are today. And it's through, we carry forward thanks to our Gold Star families. The sacrifice that families make to this nation, that's how we carry on. My brother and I, and my brother as a combat veteran during the first Iraqi war, being separated from him was probably the hardest time in my life. But realizing some families go through that hard time every single day, that he wasn't there, he was in danger's way, but that same feeling of him being away from me, these families carry every day. And something that we try to just encompass in this poem, and it's entitled The Importance of Remembrance, and how we as a society just being very intentional about our efforts to remember our soldiers, to remember what it takes for us to be the nation that we can be, that we must be, not just here at home, but also abroad. I as a poet, my brother has always had a stronger voice, so I'm grateful today to be able to share this united voice this morning. And again, the poem is entitled The Importance of Remembrance. It's days like today, it's moments like this, when our country is at its strongest, unified in its mission, rooted in its tradition, patriotism unwavering, holding true to those most deserving. Bravery beyond words, for our freedom they were fighting to preserve. This day is more than just parades, old glory flying, wreaths laid upon graves. This is the day for our nation to remember the sacrifices that were made.
Remembering the sacrifices made.
To remember the sacrifices that were made.
When you really remember, it's legacy, tradition. Memorial Day is not just one day, it makes a difference in the way you're living. It's a daily honor, a tribute to what has been given. Shine our light on those dark places, unspeakable moments, those written down in history for defending the land of the brave, to those excluded from history's page. Today we say it's important to remember. From our privates to our generals, we remember you. Amazing feats, heroics of war, performed on every continent, land, sea, air, or shore. We remember because this is love. This is America's truest strength. 21 guns, flags flying high, a soldier's salute,
a tear stand in the doorway of our eyes. As a nation, we remember. We remember our children, our mothers, our fathers, our grandfathers, our grandmothers. We remember our soldiers.
We remember our soldiers.
We remember our soldiers. We
Because
remember this because this is love. The love that builds nations. It's the importance of remembrance, remembering the how and why. It's the love that's in our every breath. It's that love that's in our every step, placing us on the path, connecting our present with our past, creating strong bonds between generations, not just remembering, but refusing to forget. It's the strength of our nation. Remembering our lost troops, remembering an uncomfortable truth that our freedoms have never been free.
Our freedoms have never been free.
Our freedoms have never been free, always paid for by those who believe.
We remember those overwhelmed with their struggles from PTSD. We remember the ones that served overseas, and then many moons later they got sick from toxins from burn pits that we never knew exist. Freedom isn't free. We must always remember. Remembrance makes us who we are. A strong nation will always build upon its strengths. We honor those soldiers, those men and women who carried on, who made our nation strong. We remember those unforgettable moments for our families, those moments of strength for our nation.
Forever grateful, a family forever changed. A nation forever changed. A nation forever changed. A nation forever changed. The battles and conflicts, those known and unknown, those who made it back beneath draped flags, and those who never made it home. Those with Medal of Honor and Purple Heart distinctions, or those never fully acknowledged for their missions. We remember. The known and unknown stories of glory, the heart of our nation, to our Gold Star families. The families that carry the weight of our nation, we say thank you. We say thank you. We must always remember, remembering our nation's darkest hours, your dedication, your commitment and valor, missions fulfilled through anguish, a family's unspeakable pain, a nation forever grateful, a world forever changed, a world forever changed, a world forever changed.
The importance of remembrance, not just today, but every day. Our actions shall speak your names.
You will never be forgotten.
This is our mission, our tradition. You speak to our hearts, and we just sit in silence
and listen.
Your memory never forsaken. Through remembering, this is how we make a better world, a better nation.
This
the importance
is the importance of remembrance.
Thank you.
Wow, that was incredible. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Representative Chicocha and Councilman Mills. That was beautiful. Very much appreciated. We thank you and your team as a grateful veteran community for honoring our fallen brothers and sisters. As always, your kind words and poetry always resonate. Okay, at this time, I would like to ask Chaplain Andrew Warner to please come forward for the memorial prayer. Following that, we will do the dedications.
Lord, as we are about to go forth with our daily life, let us not forget those who have served. May we be a grateful nation and thankful people of their selfless actions and dedication. May we honor them in how we use our freedoms that they secured. May we use our freedom in a manner to create community and celebrate life. May you give our fallen heroes peace. Amen.
Thank you, Colonel Warner. Now, we'd like to invite Staff Sergeant Chuk. Am I pronouncing your last name wrong? I hate getting names wrong. Okay, all right, come on up. She's going to lead us in God Bless America.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. Through the mountains, to the prairies, to the oceans, wide with hope. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Thank you very much. That was beautiful. Okay, let's see. Let me make sure I'm tracking here correctly. The program is okay. We've got Josh Maddox at the end. I just want to make sure he says a few words before we finish. Okay, you can be seated. We're going to go ahead and start the floral presentations. As I read off your organizational name, please just stand where you are, if you're able, and salute. The wreath is over here to my left. Just salute the wreath. And you can render your salute in place. Okay, we'd like to start off with our Gold Star Families Delaware chapter. Thank you. Our Gold Star Mothers of America Incorporated. The Honorable John Carney, Governor. The Honorable Bethany Hall Long, Lieutenant Governor. The Honorable Senator Tom Carper. The Honorable Chris Coons, U.S. Senator. The Honorable Lisa Blunt Rochester, U.S. Congresswoman. Kathy Jennings, Attorney General. Jeffrey Bullock, Secretary of State. Colleen Davis, State Treasurer. Trinidad Navarro, Insurance Commissioner. Our Delaware General Assembly. Air Force Sergeants Association. American Ex-POWs Delaware Chapter 1, Incorporated. American Legion and Auxiliary, Department of Delaware. American Legion and Auxiliary, Department of New Jersey. American Veterans and Vets. Okay. The Honorable Lydia York, State Auditor. Thank you. Americans of Polish Descent Cultural Society. Association of the U.S. Army, Delaware Chapter. Colonial Paralyzed Veterans of America. Delaware Commission of Veterans Affairs. Office of Veteran Services. Office of Veteran Services. Sorry, I caught you off guard. Delaware Freemasons, Masonic Riders. Delaware Military Academy. Delaware Military Heritage and Education Foundation, Incorporated. Delaware National Guard. Delaware Patriot Guard. Delaware River and Bay Authority. Delaware Society, Daughters of the American Revolution. Delaware Society, Sons of the American Revolution. Delaware Veterans Incorporated. Desert Knights of America Motor Club, Motorcycle Club. Department of Veterans Affairs Medical Center. Disabled American Veterans and Auxiliary, Department of Delaware. Dover Air Force Base. First State Military Academy. First State Military Women Warriors. Fleet Reserve Association. A Hero's Welcome. Jewish War Veterans, Department of Delaware. Kamikaze Survivors Association. Korean Defense Veterans Association. Korean War Veterans and Association of Delaware. Marine Corps League and Auxiliary, Department of Delaware. Marine Corps League and Auxiliary, Department of New Jersey. Military Officers Association of America. Military Order of the Cootie and Auxiliary, Grand of Delaware. Military Order of the Cootie and Auxiliary, Grand of New Jersey. Military Order of the Devil Dogs, Pack of Delaware. Military Order of the Purple Heart. Military Order of the World Wars. National Association of Black Veterans Delaware Chapter. Pilgrim Baptist Church Veterans Ministry. Purple Heart Riders. Scottish American Military Society, the First Day Camp. Silent Service Motorcycle Club. Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War. The Reserve Officers Association of Delaware. The U.S. War Dogs Association, Incorporated. United States Department of Housing and Urban Development. United States Army. United States Air Force. United States Marine Corps with Marcorps Spectra. United States Navy with Navy Operations and Support Center. United States Coast Guard. United States Space Command. United States Navy Cruiser Sailors Association. United States Submarine Veterans Incorporated. Veterans of Foreign Wars and Auxiliary, Department of Delaware. Veterans of Foreign Wars and Auxiliary, Department of New Jersey. Vietnam Veterans of America, Delaware. Delaware Medal of Honor Historical Association. Vietnam Veterans Motorcycle Club. Warrant Officers Association First State Chapter. Okay, for any organization or association that would like to salute the wreath, please go ahead and stand if your organization was not called. And then I would also ask that you see me after the ceremony to make sure that we get you for the next ceremony. Are there any other organizations? I'm saluting the wreath. Is that everyone? Anyone else? Okay, now I'd like to call up our Executive Director, Joshua Maddox. Would you please come forward to provide closing remarks?
Thank you, Anna. There's not much that can be said after today. A lot of the speeches were spot on. There's not much else that could be said. One thing that I would like to bring up is that we do have Frank Vavila back here with our esteemed World War II veteran, Ray Fermani. If you two could please stand. Frank wants me to stop doing that. Not going to. Next thing is, I started this thing last year and I was trying to count, but I think General Wiley over there was withholding from standing all 72 times. So I didn't get the full count, but I'll try next year and give you a full count of how many times he stands to salute. So today is a solemn day. And before I can conclude this event, I would like for the Gold Star mothers and the Gold Star families to please stand and be recognized. And lastly, there are an untold amount of veterans in this crowd right now that feel that Memorial Day, they feel the pain of Memorial Day. Every one of us, or vast majority of us, has lost somebody while serving, a friend, a battle buddy. So this day is for you as well. So please take a moment in silence and honor those that we've lost. Thank you all. Have a wonderful day.
I'm sorry? Thank you, Director Maddox. And ladies and gentlemen, I'd like for everyone to please rise for the honor volley and the playing of taps.